objectives of our lesson for today are to understand what is an IDLE, what is the difference between Python shell and IDLE, and also how to configure Python development environment. So, assuming that you have installed Python correctly, go to the Start button, click All Programs, find your Python, click on it, and you see a few options here. The first one that I would like you to try is the one which says Command Line. Click on that, and you see that a simple window opens. It is simple because it doesn't have any menu on the top, and it looks like a DOS command. Also notice that on the top of this window it will tell you what version of Python you have installed, and there are other information about your system. There is also a symbol here which looks like 3 greater than signs. This is called a prompt. A prompt basically means that Python is waiting for you to type something and it will immediately execute it. For example, if I type 3 plus 4, it immediately tells me the answer, which is 7. This is in contrast with compiled programming languages such as C and Java, when in those programming languages, if you want to run a program or execute a program, you have to type the entire program, then compile it, and then execute it. There are many other commands which I can issue to Python at this point, but the intention of this lesson is not to teach you all those commands, it's just to teach you the difference between Python shell and Python IDLE. Next, go to Start again, click All Programs, go back to your Python, but this time select the Python IDLE. When you select that, a Python IDLE opens. Let me put this side by side with your shell so you can see the difference. First of all, what is on the top of the Python IDLE is the same which is on the top of the Python shell. Also notice that the prompt is the same as Python shell. So if I type something in the prompt, for example, what is 3 times 5, and as soon as I push return, it will give me the answer. The main difference between the Python shell on the left and Python IDLE on the right is that the Python IDLE allows you to do graphical user interfaces and has menus on the top. For example, if I click on the file, I can open new files and I can save files and I can print, or if I click on edit, I see that I can cut, copy, paste, and search, and so on. I do not intend to go through all the menu items on the top. The only one that I would like you to try is the options. Click on the options and click on Configure IDLE. You see that a dialog box opens. This dialog box allows you to change the font size and the font type and the background colors and the properties of your window. For example, if I select my font size here to be 16 and click Apply, you can see that immediately the font becomes larger. I can also change the background color of my window. For example, if I click on highlighting, choose color, and let's say I want to make the background color of my window to be yellow. So I select that, and as soon as I click OK, it will ask me to give it a name. The reason is that if you in the future want to go back to the default menu, or you want to save some particular theme that you like, you can give it a name and refer to it later. So let me call it my yellow background, and say OK, and here it will show me what it would look like if I apply it. So let me just go ahead and apply it, and as you can see, it immediately makes the background color to be yellow. In this dialog, you can also change the color of different kinds of strings and the background of those fonts. For example, you can say whenever an error happens, I want it to show it with red color. Now, if you want to go back to the original theme and change everything back the way it was, click on a built-in theme and say ideally classic, and select the ideally classic and apply it. Notice that everything goes back except for the size of the font. The size of the font just stays the same. If you want to go back to the original font, which was, let's say, 12, all you have to do is select 12 and apply it. And then, of course, close this dialog box, which everything goes back the way it was. So let's go back to the objective of the lesson. The first one was, what is IDLE? Before I can tell you what is an IDLE, let me tell you what is an IDE. An IDE stands for the Integrated Development Environment. And it is a software application that facilitates application development for computer programmers. So, for example, the C language has IDE, the Java language has IDE, and Python also has an IDE. An IDE normally consists of a source code editor and automation tools and debugger. Some of these may not be familiar for you right now, but as we go through the course, you will learn what they are and what do they do. So, what is an IDLE? An IDLE is the IDE for Python. That basically means the development environment that we write the programs for Python. The reason it is called IDLE is just to distinguish it from the general IDE. In the future lessons, we will talk about IDLE with more details. At this point, all I want you to be able to do is to open the IDLE and also understand the difference between the IDLE and the Python shell.